Loren. This is a show where we talk about emerging trends in the data world to enable people to stay informed. In today's episode, we are going to discuss about leveraging Microsoft technologies as your one-stop shop for data and AI. Our focus is on Microsoft Azure. Now, cloud makes your data and AI management even more comprehensive and powerful because it has many platforms that support databases, analytics, AI, and data governance. With me today is a guest who understands this topic in depth, and I'd like to welcome her to introduce herself. Karibu.
Thank you so much, Loren, for having me. My name is Becky Abraham. I'm a leader in the business intelligence, data, and AI space. I have a track record of about 10 years of experience, having worked in both in the US and in Africa, implementing projects around the space. It's a pleasure to be here today to share some of my experiences around that, and specifically on what are some of the solutions that you can leverage out there to be able to carry out your projects, either at an organizational capacity or at an individual capacity.
So Becky, we know that Microsoft is a giant in this space. What does it have in terms of resources to support data and AI?
Okay.
Specifically to the cloud resources.
That is a very good question, Loren. And as you mentioned, Microsoft is really a giant in this space. And if you look back, before we even got into the data and AI space, Microsoft has always been there. I mean, when you buy your first laptop, it's running on Microsoft platforms or technology already. So when it comes to supporting data and AI today with Microsoft, they have quite a range of resources that they offer, starting with their cloud solution, which is Microsoft Azure, which gives you everything from what you need for your compute resources to, if you're looking at analytics, they have those solutions. And from the recent news, we also saw that OpenAI, Microsoft has invested heavily on that, and that is why today most of the conversations everyone is talking about ChatGPT and all that. So there's a range of solutions that they have depending on which specific categories that you're looking at. It's basically a one-stop shop. You get to pick your poison.
Yes. Okay, so in terms of the data movement, from beginning, of course, like you mentioned, when you buy the machine, you have your Windows, you have your Excel files, Word documents, and that's where mostly the operation of data starts, because you key in your data, then you want to store it somewhere, and then now it becomes a whole series of folders, then you want to migrate to the cloud, and etc. So when you get back to the cloud, at the point you get to the cloud, how do we start from there?
Okay, yeah. Maybe just before I answer your question, just to draw back, and I know this has been covered in some of the previous episodes that you have done, and to give context to some of the audience that will be watching this.
Yeah.
For you to be able to even start talking about data ingestion, let's give a use case, for example. You work in an organization, and one of the challenges that you're dealing with, number one, is how to manage data from your different platforms that you have. Number two, there's a buzz of data is the new oil. So how am I going to actually get this data to work?
Yeah.
Half the time, most of the organizations, their data is sitting in silos.
Yeah.
So how do we get this information to communicate together? But most importantly, you also don't want to have this information fine communicating, but being segmented and only available to a specific unit within the business. You want that information to be available across the organization.
Right.
So if we were to put that down to paper and just draw a process through it, so you will have your core systems that you're using in an organization. Now, half or most of them today, they still sit within your premises. You probably have a server room where everything is running from. Some have actually probably have a portion of them sitting in the cloud somewhere, but then they're not able to actually integrate that information.
Yes.
So Microsoft provides resources that actually can help you to be able to do that. Some of you guys might already have heard of words like data pipelines being thrown around. So that is how a whole process that can be actually be deployed to be able to do that. Now, I can't help it but mention one of the big words around today, which where you start hearing people talking about data warehouses, a data lake, and a data factory. But what does that really mean? So back to our conversation of how then do I get this data from all these systems that I have and move it to Microsoft Azure Cloud.
Yeah.
So number one, I have to look and consider what exactly am I moving? Am I trying to move my applications, or do I want my applications to sit where they are and just move the data outside of it? So you could either do a migration of your databases, which is basically lifting a copy of that database and having it hosted within Azure, so that you're able to do more than just having it being stored there. And they have a process for that and a service that is called SQL migration that they use to be able to do that transfer. If I'm not looking to just lift the database, then what I can do is I can create different pipelines or different processes. Azure Data Factory is one of those resources or services that I can use to be able to do that, because it gives me an end-to-end actually pipeline that I can use that is going to help me to be able to fetch that information, ingest it, and have it sitting somewhere in the data factory or a data warehouse. Microsoft has something called Microsoft or Azure Synapse.
Yes.
That is a fully developed built data warehouse that you can use to store your information. Depending on the use case that you have on where your data is sitting, there are different tools and technologies within Azure that you can use. If you are trying to get real-time data, so you're trying to stream that information as the events happen. So you have event hubs that you can use to be able to do that. You have IoT tools as well that they have on Azure that you can use to do that. So depending on your use case and scenario, there's a lot more that they have that you can leverage to be able to get your data from its source and have it stored based on any of the storage resources that they have.
Okay. At this point, since you're already talking about data and we're talking about IoT and all these other terminologies, okay? So does it support, is there a specific kind of data that Azure supports, or is it open to different kinds of data?
It is open to everything. It doesn't really matter whether it's a picture or it's a music file or whether it's a PDF file. So there's, when we look at data, we try to classify data into structured and unstructured data. So depending on the kind of data that you're dealing with, so there are specific tools or services again that they have that you can use to be able to do that. For example, if I am dealing with unstructured data, so I'm having data coming from different sources. I have images, I have text files, I have my Excel files, all sorts of data that are coming in from different places. So that mix of everything, because we haven't gotten to a point where by now we're trying to classify that information. At that point, we are calling it unstructured data.
Correct.
Now, a data factory is a good example to use in this case to be able to move that information from where it's coming from and having it stored on Azure. And the good thing now with the Azure Data Factory is it gives you the flexibility and saves you a lot of time when you're trying to analyze this information, because then you can have access to it as it is and you can analyze it as it is. You can make it available to various teams to be able to do or continue doing their process as they should. When it comes to structured data, then it means now that we are working with organized information. It's in sort of table format and it's easily understandable. I can make sense of what that data is actually saying at a glance before I even take it through any further processing. So, and that is where now things like SQL databases come in, because then now that information can go in. But at the same time, you also have different processes that you can use. For unstructured data, you can still use Azure Blob Storage for the same as well.
All right. And it's good you mentioned the bit of analytics, because I think after you have all this data in one place, you now want to make decisions based on it. So the next step probably will be coming up with some nice visuals that are making sense to a business user. Okay. So how now from there, how do we go about to get to that level?
Okay. Now again, Microsoft being Microsoft, they, of course, they have thought through everything that you could possibly ever need. And they've gone through various iterations to be able to come up with a really powerful tool that they term as Power BI. And depending on where you're using that, it is going through different iterations. Recently, they did an update, and now it is actually called Microsoft Fabric. So Microsoft Power BI, you get to use that to analyze your data. The good thing is now if you are not a technical person, now this is where you actually come in. It makes it very easy to be able to also say that you're also a technical person, because you can actually see and understand your data in a very easy way, but you can also get a lot of insights that the traditional methods of analyzing data wouldn't have to give you.
Yeah.
And they've made it easy to a point that you can use Power BI in different platforms. Yeah. You can install it on your laptop and be able to analyze your data, whether it's coming from Excel or even from Azure. You would be able to do that, but in terms of collaboration and sharing those insights that you've been able to develop with different stakeholders or users within your organization or even publicly, you have Microsoft Power BI service, which is online and hosted as well, and it relies heavily on Azure for the storage of once you publish these reports to that platform as well. Oftentimes I know people would say, if my organization spans across 1,000 people, then how am I going to make sure that everyone has access? So they've gone a step further and modified their licensing actually to make sure that now you have different ways to be able to license you guys. So whereby now they are doing something called Microsoft Premium, which is basically capacity based. So instead of having to license everyone, then they can just have the free account, but then they will be able to consume based on now the technology that is powered by Azure, to be able to make sure that everyone can access the reports.
Okay, good. That was a good explanation. Okay, let's get back to something you mentioned earlier, which is OpenAI.
Yes.
So in the AI bit, does Azure support developing of solutions which are going to help drive artificial intelligence?